We begin this morning in Washington with questions this morning about who will be leading the new Congress.
Yesterday's opening session for the House quickly turned to chaos. For the first time in 100 years, Republicans failed to elect a Speaker of the House. The party ended the day locked in a stalemate after holding 3 separate votes, all ending with Republican leader Kevin McCarthy falling short of the votes needed to secure the position.
No person having received the majority of the whole number of votes cast by surname, a speaker has not been elected.
And this morning, McCarthy is digging in his heels, saying he has no plans to give up.
Members are talking. We're walking through. I think we'll find our way to get there. And this is a healthy debate. It might not happen on the day we want it, but it's going to happen. We're not that far away. We only need 11 more votes to win.
NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin joins us now with the latest on all this. So, Julie, the House adjourned until noon today. As of last night, the math was not adding up for McCarthy to win the position. In fact, it was moving in the opposite direction. So what can we expect today?
Yeah, good morning, guys. Well, first, in practical terms, Americans are waking up today to essentially a government that is not functioning. With the House failing to elect their speaker, they're not really allowed to conduct any business, nor are they able to, according to House rules. So today, for Kevin McCarthy, he's hoping to at least make some sort of progress as the day goes along. They'll likely bring up another vote if they think the votes are there for him. Last night, we closed out 3 unsuccessful votes for McCarthy, none of them resulting, of course, in anyone getting 218, that magic number. And he only stands to lose about 4 Republicans with the narrow majority that he was able to win in November in the election. So today, a really big day for McCarthy. Not necessarily at this point do we know whether they'll be able to vote and successfully elect him, but really there is nobody right now that has those 218 votes. So we'll just see as today gets along.
So Republicans, or at least McCarthy's team, trying to break the impasse, but there is that group of holdouts. They're standing firm. Do we know, is there any ground for a compromise with McCarthy, or are they looking to go in a totally different direction no matter what? And then if it's not McCarthy, then who?
I think it's important to remember this is not something that McCarthy and his allies have been trying for overnight, right? They've been working the entire holiday break. They've been working really in many ways even before the midterm elections as McCarthy made his bid for speakership known. He's been trying to get this position since 2015. This has been something top of mind for him. So they've been continuing to negotiate overnight with those holdouts, but in many ways, those votes continuing to bolster his opposition as they saw even an increase in opposition against McCarthy as those vote totals went on, ending the night in 20 against him. So McCarthy's team is continuing to try to at least publicly appear positive, but Democrats even are catching on to what this means. I want you to take a listen to what Speaker Pelosi and a few others had to say yesterday.
As one who loves this institution, I think it's a sad day.
That is the failure of Republicans. The Republicans are the party of never, and it's always never when they don't like somebody. And that's how we fail.
Sad day for the House of Representatives as an institution. Sad day for democracy. It's a sad day for the American people.
Not often we see Marjorie Taylor Greene, of course, in the same side of things as those 2 Democrats, part of Democratic leadership. But obviously here, McCarthy's allies, Democrats, even Republicans in the Senate, really realizing what this means now and how chaotic it looks for Republicans.
I mean, so quickly, Julie, for Republicans, what is at stake here?
I mean, really everything, Joe. Right now, it looks like, and Democrats are successfully painting Republicans in the House as being disheveled, as not being able to get it together as they take on this new majority in the lower chamber. And this really has practical effects for Americans around the country, right? As I mentioned, our government is currently not functioning. There's nothing they're able to do. Even congressmen who were recently elected aren't able to help their constituents because they haven't been sworn in. So this is practically really bad for Republicans not to have a functioning government. And of course, as we look ahead to the next elections in 2024, this could have practical effects there as well.
All right, Julie Sirkin, thank you so much.
And now to the latest on the condition of Buffalo Bills safety Damar Hamlin. The 24-year-old remains in critical condition this morning at a Cincinnati hospital after collapsing and suffering a cardiac arrest during Monday night's game against the Bengals. Hamlin received CPR for several minutes on the field before being taken away in an ambulance. The game was later suspended and then postponed. There has been an outpouring of support for Hamlin since then. Niagara Falls was lit in blue last night. That's what you see on your screen right now. That's for Hamlin's Buffalo Bills, as well as the Bengals Stadium where Hamlin collapsed. NBC News correspondent Maura Barrett is in Cincinnati, and we're also joined again today by NBC Sports host and reporter Corey Robinson. Good morning to both of you. We're happy to have you with us. So let's begin, Maura, with you. We're hearing from Hamlin's family. What's the latest on his condition? What do we know at this hour?
Well, here at UC Health, Damar Hamlin remains in critical condition, but we do know from a family spokesperson who tweeted overnight that his vitals returned to normal and he was able to sleep with the assistance of a breathing tube. Doctors continued to run tests overnight, but obviously we're still waiting on any more details in terms of his specific condition after suffering that cardiac arrest on the field on Monday night. The NFL has said that his heartbeat had been restored before he left the field, before the ambulance took him here, and he had spent the night in the intensive care unit. His family releasing a statement yesterday saying that they're expressing gratitude and thanks for all of the support they've received from the community, but also wanting to acknowledge the speed at which the medical professionals responded and were able to get him here so quickly. And they just say that they're waiting minute by minute, hour by hour, but that he is fighting. Savannah.
Corey, let's bring you in here. Now, of course, if you were watching the game, if you watched our coverage yesterday, you saw the faces of those players. They were on both teams visibly upset by what they witnessed on the field. And now the NFL is facing criticism over its handling of the incident and the amount of time it took to actually postpone the game rather than just suspend it or give the players a little bit of time. Can you explain what goes into making these types of operational decisions and where that criticism stands today?
Well, the criticism, I think, lies on this one word of trauma. And because what you're doing is you're basically exposing trauma not only to, obviously the players on the field who have to sit there and watch their teammate and their loved one, potentially battle for their life. Or that's what we were watching. This is a life and death scenario. And then you also think about, this is being streamed live into the homes of millions and millions of Americans, little kids watching with their parents. So we're talking about a communal trauma, and that, I think, is where the criticism lies. That's like why televise that for so long. But I do think that the correct thing, and I think Peter King talked about this in his podcast last night as far as how the NFL handled this, you want to be able to acquire all the information. So the fact that both coaches were on the phone with the league, and Roger Goodell, the commissioner, was trying to get information from every single person, every stakeholder from the NFLPA, who's working closely with the coaches and the league and the medical professionals from both teams. That's how those conversations are generally reached at. But I do think, Savannah, the interesting question is, well, if you want to make the right decision, how long will you take? But do you need to live stream it? And I think that was the biggest question: is why was the trauma live streamed?
Yeah, absolutely. With no information and everyone just sort of watching in confusion. Absolutely. Maura, we've seen this major outpouring of support for Hamlin across the country that includes millions of dollars raised for a toy drive campaign he has on GoFundMe. Tell us more about how he's being honored.
Well, there's just been an absolute flood of prayers and love and support. Several Buffalo Bills players staying here in Cincinnati to make sure that they can give that support to their teammate. Fans showing up here yesterday, a small prayer vigil being held, lots of social media reaction in terms of that support, because this is a young athlete who was at the beginning of his career and had a lot of drive to fulfill his dream, and he'd clearly conveyed that to his fans and a lot of his teammates. And that impact is not just here in Cincinnati or in Buffalo. It's in places and other places that he touched, like Pittsburgh, where he's from. I want to hear from the Steelers head coach, who spoke about the drive Hamlin has.
Man, it's a really personal thing for me, being a Pittsburgher, and that young man being a Pittsburgher. I've known that guy probably since he was about 12. Just got a lot of respect and love for him as a human being, his commitment to the pursuit of his goals and dreams of doing what it is he's doing right now, which is playing in the NFL.
That sentiment echoed across fans and players that we've heard from, that commitment to the game as well as to his community as those prayers continue to come in as we wait for more updates on Hamlin's condition. Guys.
Corey, also Monday night's postponement, of course, comes at a critical point of the season with the final week of the regular season scheduled for this weekend. And we heard yesterday that this particular game will not be played out this week. Talk to us about the challenges this poses for the league going forward.
I honestly don't think it really poses as much challenges as you would think, because on first blush you think, okay, well, this is a huge game, and once again, like, this doesn't matter in the scope because we're talking about life and death, right? But there are 3 teams competing for the number one, the Clinton number 1 spot in the AFC. So you're thinking, okay, this is home field advantage and a first-round bye. But once again, the NFL has made it very clear, and I think this is a good thing, the strength and speed with which they've spoken with a unified voice, from the Bengals president coming out and saying that love and humanity has come to the forefront, that we're seeing the human side of the game, the fan outpouring that we just heard about from Mara, the league office saying, look, we're not even thinking about rescheduling this game or postponing this game in the current moment. We're focused on Damar Hamlin, the NFLPA, the players, the referees coming out, their association, from all levels, everyone's saying we're focused on player safety. I think it'd be inconsistent for the league to then say, okay, well, how can we schedule this game going into the final regular season? I think finally, the last point here, if you're really focused on player safety, you cannot make a decision until you find out what happens to Damar Hamlin. And I think the final piece is that there are rules as far as like tie breaking. So I don't think that there's any issue as far as, okay, well, how would this get resolved? Just go to NFL.com and there's like a 20-page document on all the contingency plans, because the NFL operationally is, unmatched as far as contingencies. So I think that the most important thing that all of us have to realize is that a first-round bye or home field advantage is not more important than a player's life. So just cancel the game, don't play it.
Yeah. Corey and Mara, thank you both so much for getting us up to speed this morning.
Damar Hamlin's injury sent shockwaves through Buffalo, a famously dedicated fan base lovingly referred to as the Bills Mafia. And in Cincinnati, some fans of both the Bills and Bengals spent the night outside Hamlin's hospital praying for his recovery. NBC News correspondent Sam Brock reports from Buffalo on how the football community is coming together.
On the field, the players' faces and free-flowing tears told a story. The same pain channeled by a community here in Buffalo, bearing strikingly similar expressions at a vigil.
I think we all watched their hearts break. We watched that on their faces. And knowing how much they love their teammates, it's a brotherhood. We watch it every day.
As they await the fate of Damar Hamlin, number 3, the human aspect transcending any sporting interest.
To see this young man who I could have parented, this young man, and just as a mother to know that his mother is, is sitting in limbo and waiting, and it's exhausting.
The blow, a 24-year-old's dreams compromised moments after he just hugged his own mother. This hitting Buffalo natives on the heels of an unthinkable year that included a race-inspired mass shooting, a brutally fatal snowstorm, and for the Bills family, the tragic death of a player's brother.
And it just kind of feels like, how much more can we possibly have to carry,
The organizer of this prayer vigil, Jill Kelly, wife of Bills great Jim Kelly, acknowledging that Monday Night Football game was an unusually difficult scene to process.
Jim was quick to say last night that he has never experienced anything like that, seen anything like that. And what little we did see, I can only imagine how traumatizing everything that happened last night was to the players and the coaches.
Hamlin's cardiac arrest ultimately prompting the NFL to postpone the game indefinitely.
A lot of times we navigate unprecedented situations and we have really high expectations of how it should be handled, what should happen. We're kind of being fueled by our emotions in the moment.
But with this community and the sports world solely focused on the well-being and recovery of Damar, Bills Mafia has become the picture of resilience in spite of such devastating trauma.
I'm not here, to mourn. We're not here. It's not a vigil. We're praying, and we're walking on the faith that we have that Damar will be okay.
for all of us. We're human beings before we're anything else. You know, all these other labels like don't mean anything when something like that happens. And so it was so much greater than football, and prayer was the answer.
Support and faith leading the way, far outside the confines of any stadium. Sam Brock, NBC News, Buffalo.
Now, this morning, new details are coming to light about the arrest of the man suspected of killing 4 University of Idaho students. Bryan Kohberger made his first appearance yesterday in Pennsylvania, where he agreed to be extradited. NBC News correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the latest.
Bryan, what you doing?
Handcuffed and in a prison jumpsuit, Bryan Kohberger was escorted into a packed Pennsylvania courtroom in a brief hearing telling the judge he will not fight extradition to Idaho. The 28-year-old says he is not responsible for the murder of 4 University of Idaho students last November, according to his public defender.
He believes he's going to be exonerated. That's what he believes. Those were his words. So he's really been very easy to talk to, actually, and he's in a calm demeanor.
Kohberger grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, graduating last year from DeSales University with a master's in criminal justice. Heavy security, state and local police surrounded the small county courthouse. 2 law enforcement sources tell NBC News forensic genealogy, the DNA of extended family members, played a role in his arrest. Kohberger was studying to get his doctorate in criminology from Washington State, just 15 minutes from the crime scene. He drove cross-country with his father in December in the white Hyundai Elantra authorities had been looking for. Body cam footage obtained by NBC News shows Indiana state troopers pulling the father and son over on the highway. Kohberger's attorney says they were stopped twice on that trip for speeding and tailgating.
I believe it to be a random coincidence.
Kohberger's parents say they are cooperating with authorities, while the father of Kaylee Gonsalves says he is eager to come face-to-face with his daughter's alleged killer.
I want him to be sick of seeing us and sick of knowing that these people won't let it go.
When Kohberger is extradited to Idaho, he will be formally charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. He's expected to plead not guilty. Back to you.
All right, Stephanie Gosk, thank you so much.
Now to California, where a father is facing charges this morning after police say he deliberately drove his car off a cliff. Inside that car, his wife and 2 young children. Everyone managed to survive the crash, and authorities are calling that nothing short of a miracle. NBC News correspondent Nyla Charles has the latest on the investigation.
A daring rescue caught on camera in California after a car carrying 2 adults and 2 children flew off a cliff and plunged into the jagged rocks below, just missing the Pacific Ocean, sending onlookers into shock.
I could see in my rearview mirror just the car being, straight like this, and then all of a sudden just disappeared down.
Authorities now saying there's probable cause to believe the crash was an intentional act, arresting the driver for attempted murder and child abuse. San Mateo County and state officials saying the car fell 250 feet, just a turn off of California's coastal Route 1. Robin Johnson called 911.
Did not think for 1 second anyone was surviving that.
But they did, saved by the timing of low tide and California Highway Patrol's incredible crew, like flight officer and paramedic Sean Bouye.
Are the victims lucky that they didn't fall into the water?
During high tide, this would have been underwater, this location. In fact, where they landed was still wet from the previous tide the night before.
The area, called Devil's Slide, known for its scenic views and sharp drop-off. CAL FIRE San Mateo firefighters rappelling down the cliff first.
The damage to the vehicle would indicate that it hit and then flipped several times. Landed mostly on its wheels. So we immediately put a plan in place to lower rescuers down to the vehicle to get eyes and assess what we had.
Then helicopters called in. Bouye hoisted a firefighter down to the stranded people.
As we got even closer, we were told that the firefighters had rescued 2 children and that the adults still needed to be rescued, but they were trapped in the car.
A storm was approaching, threatening the rescue.
It's making time more of the essence.
And their survival even more astounding. After the rescue, all 4 occupants were hospitalized, the adults with major but non-life-threatening injuries, and the 2 children relatively unharmed, according to California Highway Patrol.
We had 4 survivors in a collision where there shouldn't have been any survivors. I mean, it is truly a miracle that they're alive.
A miracle that may end with the driver in court.
Our thanks to Naila Charles for that report. The California Highway Patrol says the driver, Dharmesh Patel of Pasadena, was arrested in the hospital. Authorities say after interviewing witnesses and gathering evidence all night, they think driving off the cliff was an intentional act. Patel is being treated for injuries and then will be booked into jail after he's released from the hospital. The investigation is still ongoing.
Now let's get to a check of your morning news now weather.
Meteorologist Angie Lassman joins us. Angie, good morning.
Good morning, guys. We look to the East Coast where we're dealing with some severe weather as well as some snowy conditions. Let's take a look at the video that this system showed us of the impacts that were happening yesterday in the Twin Cities. You can see plenty of snow falling there. They received anywhere from 5 to 10 inches of snow around Minneapolis, so it made for dangerous travel. And that's just one part of this system. We also have the severe weather part that is impacting folks to the south. So let's show you some of those accumulations as far as our snowfall that we're expecting on top of what we saw yesterday. We'll still see the upper Midwest get anywhere from 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches of snow, especially along the lakes. In the southern part of this system, we're seeing more active weather, a line of severe thunderstorms that continues to march its way to the east, impacting folks in Florida, Alabama, and Georgia with a tornado watch that's going to go in effect, or that is going to remain in effect, rather, through the afternoon hours. You can see where we're pinpointing the most impactful weather. It will include still the tornadoes. It'll include the hail as well as the damaging wind gusts in places like Macon and Tallahassee are included in that. So just be weather aware through the day today. That goes for the West Coast, too. We're watching another storm, thanks to an atmospheric river, bring plentiful moisture onshore for folks in California today. And it's really just too much all at once. You can see that rain has already worked onshore and will continue to through the day today with impressive rainfall rates of over an inch per hour. You can see why 33 million people up and down California are in that flood watch at this time. We'll see quick water rises with heavy rain working through. Some of these locations may receive up to 8 inches of rain by the time we get through today and into tomorrow. So we once again will be looking at the landslide issue, the flooding concern, as well as some washed out roads. And not to mention, this system will also bring with it some damaging winds, really strong winds in some places like San Francisco, where those wind gusts could near 50 miles per hour, guys. So that means, of course, down trees, widespread power outages on top of the really heavy rain that'll cause flooding.
All right. Angie, thank you so much.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.